a little bit the context. The context is Shukadeva Goswami has expressed the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. Sutta was in the audience hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and following the completion of Shukadeva Goswami's narration, there was a big yajna planned in Naimisharanya. Why Naimisharanya? Because it's a holy place. And it's said to be the hub of the universe, meaning you do in Naimisharanya the benefit of something of spiritual benefit or upliftment for society. It goes to the whole universe, not just the rest of the planet. That's the power or a special benediction of Naimisharanya. So they planned a yajna for 1,000 years, meaning after one yajna is completed, the other yajna has already begun, and continuing for 1,000 years. Why? They knew after Krishna's departure, something happens. The next yuga, shortly thereafter, there's a sandhi in between, then Kali Yuga begins. And Kali Yuga is described in the Bhagavatam as being not nice. Manda sumanda matayo, manda bhagya hipadrata. There's misfortune. People are always disturbed. People are always quarreling. It's a dark age. Nasty. So to diminish or counteract the effects of Kali Yuga, their plan was perform a yajna in Naimisharanya that would benefit not just themselves, but not just even human population, but all living entities. That's the scope of these sages. And as they were about to begin, much to their delight, who would show up but Suta Goswami? And immediately they stopped their yajna. They all stood and offered their respect to Suta and invited him to take a special seat. And then that's the opening scene of Canto 1, Chapter 1. And as they could have said, you just heard Srimad Bhagavatam from Shukadeva Goswami. Can you summarize it? That's not what they said. What they said was they have their learned personalities, and they ask learned personality type questions. And one of them, now, Suta had, in addition to the qualification of having just heard Srimad Bhagavatam, he was the son, Suta was the son of Romaharshan. Romaharshan was one of the direct disciples of Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva had entrusted each of the 4 Vedas to one of his disciples, and he entrusted the entire Puranas to Romaharshan. So his father was very gifted, and the son had heard from his father. So the son was already very learned and gifted, and he had just heard Srimad Bhagavatam. So he's a qualified speaker based upon Shruti, having heard. And so they asked questions. The first of this, chapter 1, they posed 6 questions. And then the first of those 6 questions was, this is all repeat from what we've heard earlier, but the entire range of all the Vedas, could you express in a very simple form the essence of all the Vedas, please? So that's what he's doing. In chapter 2, the response to the first question is being summarized. The very first of those answers was Savai Pungsang Paro Dharmo Yato Bhakti Radhoksaja. Bhakti unto Adhoksaja. It's an interesting combination. Bhakti means Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam, Bhaktir Uchate, from Narada Pancharatra. It's engaging the senses in the service of the master of the senses. Rishikas are engaged in the service of Rishikesha. That's the definition of bhakti, one of the definitions of bhakti. What is bhakti? It's engaging senses in the service of the master of the senses. Bhakti uchate. It is said that bhakti is that. Now, the object is adhoksaja. Sounds like a contradiction. We heard lots of contradictions yesterday evening. So here's one. Use the senses to serve the one who's beyond the senses. How do you do that? How do you engage the senses to serve one who's beyond the senses? That's a good question, isn't it? Well, on the authority of Shastra, we have an understanding of adhoksaja. Through sound, we have an understanding of that which we may not be able to see. Not only may not, we don't have the adhikar to see. He who's beyond the senses with our senses. But he can be seen jnana chakshusha. He can be seen through the eyes of knowledge and the knowledge of the Vedas. So the Vedas give us information about he who's beyond the senses and instruct us to use our senses to serve he who is beyond their senses. Meaning not to that which was in the purview of the senses, which is sense gratification. Now Prabhupada he distilled down to very simple language, very simple language. Material activity means sense gratification. Then there's layers of what does sense gratification mean? So go back up and, a desire, a material desire. Material desire for what? So whether it's gross or subtle, it could be speculation is a type of sense gratification because the mind is one of the sixth sense to satisfy the speculations of the mind. Exclusively, that's sense gratification. It's mental speculation, but it's the type of fulfilling a desire that's on the material plane. So it's advice against sarva upadi vinirmuktam tat partvina nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam. Same definition. So, engaging the senses in the service of adhoksaja. This is in the category not only of dharma, but paradharma. So we're on the first verse, number 6, 1, 2, 6. Paradharma. Wow. The essence of the Vedas is to serve, to engage in one's occupational duty that is in the para position. Para means transcendental. So there's worldly and there's para dharma. Worldly dharma. You name it. Your family members. So you serve your family members. Or whatever it is. You drive a car, so you serve the nation by driving on the right side. It's not India. You don't drive on the left side. You follow the law. Following the law. That's obedience to the law. That's a kind of dharma. Then there's paradharma, obedience to the supreme. Savai pungsang paro dharmo yadho bhaktir adhoksaje. And then ahaituki pratyata yayatma suprasidati. Nice teaching. Suprasidati. This is the means that the Atma can achieve not only satisfaction, but suprasana, complete satisfaction. And then there's further narrations and details about that process of paradharma. The next verse says that Vasudeva Bhagavate, the service unto Vasudeva Bhagavati, Bhakti Yoga Prayota Janyati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yada Haitakam. So that's referenced here in this purport. That's verse number 7. So the devotional service unto the transcendent Lord Vasudeva results in causelessly, a byproduct is knowledge and detachment. Transcendental knowledge, not speculative knowledge or empirical knowledge, but transcendental knowledge. And that transcendental knowledge awakens that which we've forgotten, that our relationship with the Supreme and who we are and the eternal relation, etc. And with that sense of completion of consciousness, then there's detachment from the worldly. The vairagya, jnana vairagya couplet is essential in all Vedic texts, and this Bhagavatam is saying through devotional service, you don't need to endeavor otherwise or outside of bhakti. It's built into bhakti. It's a subset. If you have $1 million, you have $10. Go for the $1 million, because then you got $10, and everything else that you need is within that $1 million. So it's the paradharma includes knowledge and detachment. Properly executed, guided by spiritual teachers and teachings and the Vedas. And then the bell rings. Knowledge and detachment awaken. So with that comes this verse. This is number 9. And this verse number 9 is saying something that's very obvious. It's not the same, but it's similar to the principle of karma yoga, where one is entitled to perform prescribed duty, dharma, but you're not entitled to the result of your prescribed duty. So there's part A and part B of this verse. Don't perform your paradharma with the motive that you're going to get something material. It's repetition of something earlier, but repetition no problem for clarification purposes. Don't render devotional service to Adhoksaja or Vasudeva with the idea that I'm going to get something on the material side. Don't be motivated like that. That's the ahaituki apratiyata message from verse number 7. Then here's verse number 9. This warning, do not render your paradharma with a material motive. And the material motive meaning, I'm going to get something. And what's that something? Whatever that something is, it's fulfillment of a material desire. And what's the purpose of striving to fulfill a material desire? Enjoyment, happiness. And what's that happiness? It's on the temporary side. So Prabhupada's term is sense gratification. No, there's gross, and then there's subtle senses. But, it's material. So don't do the paradharma to achieve something material. And as Prabhupada writes in the purport, that's very common. It's not only common in the world, it's directly within the Vedas. Karma kanda, performance of prescribed duties. I'm being asked to speak tonight at the Bhakti Lounge, Bhakti Ashram, about why are there different religions. This verse and purport is answering some of it because people want it. They want, and the wants are very broad and variegated. So people want and want and want. There's the modes of nature that are operating. That's another topic that makes variegated religion. But a principle is I want. And so I do because I want. Om Jai Jagadisha Hare. And the Bhagavatam is the Paradharma text saying no. Now, supposing I don't want, this is part B. Supposing I don't want, but it comes. Fantastic. Sense gratification, thank you very much. No. Even if it comes, or when it comes, when prosperity comes, due to engaging in paradharma. What are you supposed to do with that? Do not deploy it in sense gratification. Now that's a fine line. Most everybody here, probably I'm the exception, has a house. And in the house there's stuff. And the stuff can be, engaged, for material or for spiritual. Now, that's a fine line. What does engaging stuff for spiritual purpose look like? It's this and that and the next thing, and you name it. There's a purpose behind it, and if I can't see that purpose behind it, it's no thank you. That's the vairagya. No thank you. Thanks, but no thanks. And if I say yes, thank you to Krishna, I've engaged in paradharma, and Krishna's he's the big warehouse, and he dispenses necessities, no problem for him. But the problem is more for us, because I may say thank you and do the proper way, even a prescribed way of saying thank you, but then indulge in sense gratification. So that whatever your house and your bank balance and your car and your this and your that and the other thing and the other thing, the mindfulness is that this is given to me by the source of everything, and the source of everything is not only he's the source, he's the Bhoktara, Jagyatapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suradam Sarva. It's just Bhagavad Gita verse, spoken of in a different way in this verse, in the Bhagavatam. He's the enjoyer. So this and that and the other thing is meant for his enjoyment. And it's not difficult, it's devotional. It's a matter of the heart. It's not a matter of rule. I mean, one can follow rules and still have one's heart misplaced. That's certainly possible. A fastidious rule follower can have their heart in the wrong place. I'll follow this rule, that rule, and the other rule because it'll get me what I want. It's rare. That's it's higher up in the pyramid, but it's not the top of the pyramid. The top of the pyramid is the Bhagavatam. So material gain comes. And it should never be deployed for sense gratification. So it's A and B. The motive to get objects, to get the fulfillment of a desire. Don't do like that. But supposing it just comes, it rolls in your doorway, in your life, it just unfolds and voila. What are you supposed to do? Never see that as, I guess I deserve something. So I was rewarded with something. Let me use that something for enjoyment purposes. I mean, it may not be so blatant. It can be subtle. But, pure devotional service is pure devotional service. Ahaitukiya pratyata, as this earlier verse in this chapter 2. Ahaituki means without hetu, without cause. Pure devotional service has no material cause. There's a cause. I want to be in my relationship with Krishna. Please. Somebody sent me, I'll read to you. I've been circulating it to some devotees. A very nice verse. This is Raghunath Das Goswami. We all know Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami was from in Prabhupada's words, amongst the wealthiest family in India of his time. He said, it's like a Birla or a Rockefeller. And he was the only son to inherit all the superlative wealth of his father, because he was the only son, not only the eldest, but the only, and his uncle. Super wealthy. No, thank you. And as he was detached from the worldly, he went further and further into the spiritual. There's details of how that unfolded. So later in his life, he's living in Vrindavan. And here's a verse that he wrote while in Vrindavan. There's Sanskrit to the verse. Here's the verse. I am scorched by the blazing forest fire of old age, deeply bitten by the poisonous snake of spiritual blindness, pierced by the sharp arrows of forced dependence on others, and surrounded by the lions of anger, lust, and greed. Oh, Lord Krishna, please give me the nectarian potion of pure love for you, which will make me strong and heroic enough to resist all the enemies and constantly engage in your pure, unalloyed devotional service without deviation. Now, this is in the mature stage of devotion. It's not neophyte stage at all. It's prema. And with that prema is abject humility, at the same time cognizance of the perils of being in the material atmosphere. And he's not unaware. And so humility and awareness of the risk of the material atmosphere, but having a full sense of shelter. His full sense of shelter. Krishna's already given him shelter. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has already given him shelter hundreds of times over. But he's not feeling shelterless. He's feeling dependent as opposed to independent. So it's very nice. It's a symptom. They're characteristic or lakshana of prema, and he has them. He's not flashing them. He's being who he is. He's engaged in Krishna prema bhakti, feeling himself fully dependent, and having one objective. Unalloyed service, unalloyed, no material mix, unalloyed service to Radha Krishna. He's resident of Vrindavan, that's his love. Radha Krishna, specifically, in his case, he's a lover of Srimati Radharani in Govardhan Hill. There's reasons for both, but that's his heart. And he doesn't deviate. And then this thing comes along and that thing comes along, and he recognizes this thing, that thing, and there's risk being in a material atmosphere. There's risk being in Austin, Texas. There's risk being in a material body. There's risk having a home and affluence and good education and et cetera, et cetera. There's risk. Because the risk is at any moment or any, inattentive moment, I can indulge because it's right there. It's at my fingertips. Prabhupada gives the example, this is Prabhupada, he gives the example of a razor. Men know that the consequence of shaving inattentively. Razors are sharp, they can shave. But supposing you're inattentive, it's really easy to cut your face. Be inattentive, check it out. You cut yourself. So don't be inattentive. While you're living your life in Austin, Texas, doing what you're doing, and recognize the peril of inattentiveness or complacency. Different ways of saying, the lower modes of nature, ignorance, being inattentive to the higher mission. You haven't been awarded by Krishna with things that you've been awarded with for a reason. There's the material and there's the spiritual. And the ultimate, the spiritual, is so that you don't have you don't have an uncomfortable life, but don't make your life soft and cushy either. Accept what is tena chaktena bunditaha magradaha kasyasvitanam. The verse from Ishopanishad. Accept those things that are arranged by Isha as your necessities, your quota, Prabhupada's language. And don't accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. To whom do they, who the thing, all things, even your quota, who does it belong to? The source of everything. And that's the principle of detachment, is this is the property of Krishna. Everything is the property of Krishna. Supposing I don't recognize that, I've got a problem. I'm creating a problem for myself, I'm creating a problem for others, because I'm a thief. I'm taking that which is the property of the Supreme and usurping it unnecessarily. That's a thief. And there's consequences for being a thief. So don't say no, don't become an artificial renouncer, but don't become an artificial enjoyer either. It's a razor's edge. But that's reality. There's not a problem. That's what this verse is indicating. So paradharma, yes. For the purpose of material gain, no. And supposing material gain comes, no. Don't deploy it in sense gratification. Even you didn't ask for it, and here it comes rolling at your feet. This is Prabhupada. This is the world of Maya. Prabhupada's phrase. Maya comes rolling at your feet. Please take me. Please take me. And the devotee turns her head and holds her hand up and says, no, thank you. I only want Krishna. Now, it may not be so blatant or graphic like that, but that's the principle. Because we're in a dangerous place. How did we get here? It's a counterintuitive answer. We got here because we wanted. Really? We wanted temptation and misery and illusion and darkness and ignorance. We wanted it? Yes. Supposing we don't want it. It's not just a matter of flick the switch and now the light's on again. It's a cultivation to effort and mercy to become relieved. So that's the Bhagavatam, teaching us the path and the principles of how to move on the path. Do this, and then the intention behind the this. Don't do with the material motivation, and even something comes, don't deploy it in sense gratification. And if you don't do that, then what do you continue to remain attentive with the razor-sharp instrument of bhakti. Attentively, consciously, with the intent that Krishna should be pleased. That's bhakti. Anukoyena Krishna Anushilanam, bhakti uttama. Same. Anyabhilashita shunyam, jnana karma janavratam. Anukoyena, Rupa Goswami's perfect definition of what is bhakti. It's what isn't and what it is. Same as this verse. So what Rupa Goswami wrote was drawn from the Srimad Bhagavatam and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to him, of understanding bhakti properly. And then with bhakti, that the incentive is bhakti rasa, or the taste of the happiness of being engaged in this type of service, paradharma, where there's no motive and there's no interruption. Bhagavatam is very nice. And then, as Prabhupada is promising in the purport, how material gain should be utilized is described as follows. Stay tuned. Any discussion? (8:15).
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for the nice class, Guru Maharaj. My question is, I went for a book distribution and I met one person and I was explaining Bhagavad Gita, but he asked to give the book for free.
Okay.
So, but I asked him any minimum donation is fine.
You give it to him. Give it to him. And say, you can do whatever you want to do. That what I would do in a situation like that is, you want something without sacrifice. The sense of receiving a gift is, there's an expression of gratitude. You can say thank you for your gift, but say thank you in a way that means you're sacrificing something. So take it for free. And then when your heart becomes freed, becomes cleansed by reading Bhagavad Gita, we'll see you again somewhere down the road and you can make a donation. Take it for free. Look, sir or madam, we have people that sponsor Bhagavad Gitas. Consider this a sponsored Bhagavad Gita. Between you and Krishna, it's a sponsored Bhagavad Gita. Now what's going inside yourself? Yay, I got something for free. No. You make a sacrifice. You offer something to Krishna. So, depends on the person, the circumstance, and the time, and everything. But help them understand, in principle, why. It's not the cost. We have sponsors. We have so many sponsors for so many Bhagavad Gitas. We're just looking for people to receive them. We give them away to hospitals and libraries and, universities and this and that, and no problem. You got yours too. Go ahead.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you. Yeah, I will try to give free.
So it depends on the time, person, circumstance, etc. How you respond.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. My question is, in the lecture we mentioned about attentiveness, otherwise Maya will catch us. And even for chanting, attentiveness is emphasized. But I have a struggle with even with chanting also, right? With attentiveness. So I'm wondering, how can we cultivate this attentiveness on a daily basis? What action, what the baby step can I take?
There's n number of answers. one suggestion to you or to anybody that asks themselves this question, ask yourself another question. Why? Because the answer, if you don't have the answer to the why question, it's cosmetic. Put something in place and it's not going to endure. Put another something in place. And it may be beneficial and you may become attentive for a while, but if the why is not, it's life. It's not only japa, it's life. Why? If something is important, why? It's like, the intention or purpose behind whatever it is. How's that? So it's not, there's a right answer or a wrong answer. It's your answer. And you can certainly refine your answer to that question that you're asking yourself. And as you go further on the path of progressive devotional service, the definition is likely to adjust. The why, the answer to the why question is likely to adjust. We spend much more time on the what and the how as opposed to why. I'll give a little example, personal example. Once upon a time, I was the youngest child of 5, and my 4 brothers and sisters, they had all gone to college. So when it came time to graduation from high school, I was going to college. And my father was very kind, and he had a very nice relationship. He did something that he had never done before. He sat me down and said, "I don't want you to go to college if you don't have a goal." Because he's, as a parent, he's worried if I go to college and I'm going to get spoiled by bad association, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, parents have that concern. He didn't say all that. He just said, you have to have a purpose. So I thought about it and said, well, I thought I would have an undeclared major for the first semester and then check things out and then decide after the first semester. Because that was how I was thinking. And he said, no, like firm. You have to have a plan. So I thought about it, said, okay, I'd like to become a doctor. Okay, go to college. But what was the why behind a doctor? I like to serve, and that's a nice way to serve. And so, because I had a math science orientation background and skill, so doctor, and I can serve people. Well, I'm serving people, but it's not. It's a different kind of doctor than because the why wasn't clear. The what answer was there, but not the why. Okay. So there's all kinds. A phrase that Sachinandan Swami uses is a wheelbarrow. You know what a wheelbarrow is? Something that has one wheel in the front and has some handles in the back, and you put your tools and go out into the garden or the field, and you got tools, a rake and a shovel and this and that, and you're doing your gardening with your wheelbarrow. So there's tools for attentiveness. There's lots of them. And if you don't have the answer to the why, the tools, you pick one up and use it for a while and then get distracted again, etc. A life of distraction is easy. If you don't, if you have the why question, then you know, any number of tools or one tool or anything. When the why is clear, then the path is clear. And it may modify over time, that's fine. Someone else? Yes, back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class. I was just curious about the scene where Dhruva was longing for material benefit,
Yes, he certainly was.
and Vishnu gave him material benefit, but along with that, he gave him knowledge. What does that mean?
Well, the distinction in Dhruva's case was Narada Muni. And Narada Muni gave him bhakti. And bhakti moved him from the material. He evolved beyond the material to the point when Vishnu offered him anything, and he was embarrassed. I was searching for a piece of broken glass, and now I've gotten this jewel. No thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. And he was embarrassed. And so the result was he had to have his material kingdom. He went back and became the king. So beware.
But he was still offered the material benediction. Like, even though at the end when he was embarrassed, he was still offered the material.
Yeah. But he had the qualification to accept it without indulging. But still he had to avenge the death of his brother, Uttama. He went off the rails and went on a rampage to kill the Yakshas because they killed his brother. You know the story. So he wasn't completely spotless. He had culture, so Swayambhu Vamana just tapped him on the shoulder and said, stop. Avenge the death of your brother is not the whole of all the Yakshas, please. Stop. So, more? You got the microphone. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, what are the fundamental reasons or factors that makes one act away from Krishna?
What's the principle of taking us away from Krishna?
Or why do we act away from Krishna? We want to go independent.
Why?
Why do we go away from Krishna? We want to act independent.
There's no good reason. There's bad reason. Misuse of independence. Let me ask you a question that answers your question. Supposing somebody grabs you by the shirt collar and holds you tight and says, surrender or else, and there's no or else. Got it? That's not voluntary. So there's volition. The volition means I can say yes or I can say no. So your question is, why does somebody say no? There's no good reason. There's bad reason. Misuse of independence. I want to enjoy. And by ignorance, independent of where there's really, I want water in a desert. It's ignorance. But look over there, I can see water. That's not water, that's a mirage. It's illusion. There's no happiness there. So if we want happiness, apart from the Supreme. So, the fall of the Jiva question is behind your question. And so, it's a long explanation that I don't want to go down. Prabhupada's simple is somehow or other. But it's the misuse of free will, in principle. Misuse of free will. And free will is there because it's of the soul. There's love because of free will. And love is a choice. And they have the choice means there's the choice to say no. And those of us that are in this material world, we said no. What's the reason? That's your question. There's no good reason. There's no good reason. So why do we pick a no good reason? Ignorance. The influence of ignorance. And then comes, well, how's there influence of ignorance in the spiritual world? There's no ignorance in the spiritual world. Where'd that ignorance come from? Then it's this whole, there's a, you know who is Bhaktivinoda Thakur? Yes? Say yes. Yes, okay. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote 100 books. And in those 100 books, about 90 of the 100 books discusses what his nomenclature is dasa means 10, mula means root, tattva, truth, the 10 essential truths of Lord Chaitanya's teachings. One of those 10, so it's in 90 of his books, and one of those 90 books, it was in English, in his English, Sri Chaitanya, His Life and Precepts. You've heard that title before. Very skinny book, 50-something pages long, and he sent it around the world, and the first half is his life, that's summary of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the second half is his precepts, his teachings. And the Dasamula Tattva is listed there. And one of those 10 is, some living entities are liberated, some living entities are conditioned. On that one of the 10 topics, he writes, do not ask the misleading question. So I'll say to you, do not ask the misleading question, when was a living entity created? Living entities aren't created. They're eternal, part and parcel of the Supreme. Was there a time? The answer is no. Was there a time when the living entity, the eternal living entity, was created? No. Eternal. That's the meaning. Eternal. Fragmental parts. So it's not that once upon a time Krishna looked at his watch and said, you know what? I think I want to enjoy, let me create some living entities with whom I can enjoy. It's not an event in time. Are living entities from Krishna? Yes. Is it an event in time? No. So back to Bhaktivinoda. Do not ask the misleading question, when the living entities were created. There's no point in time. Nor when they were enthralled. Because behind your question is a chronology question. Why is the living entity that's in this spiritual world desiring to not be in the spiritual world? As if it's an event in time. So once upon a time, the living entity looked at their watch and said, you know what? I want to enjoy separately. I want to misuse my free will. As if it's an event in time. And boop, here we are. So what's the cause? Misuse of free will. And so my language is not Bhaktivinoda Thakur's. It's not a chronological event, but it's an ontological reality. What's that ontological reality? We've misused our free will. And so therefore, somehow or other, Prabhupada didn't, indulge himself in explaining what I've just explained. Somehow or other.
Thank you, Maharaj.
No, he would explain it in different ways at different times because students would ask. Misuse of free will. Free will is of the soul. The soul is eternal. Free will is eternal. Some of us are here and some of us exactly of the Dasamula. Some liberated, some conditioned. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone else? Yes.
So my question, Hare Krishna Maharaj, my question is about like what are the procedure like we can self-evaluate ourselves in bhakti, like in terms like basically I want to understand like is there any checkpoints that we need to I mean even though we don't want to treat it as like that, like having checkpoints, but we also want to know that we want to progress. So is there any like procedure like where I can internally evaluate, introspect myself, like so I can see the progress happening? Yeah.
I'm not sure I've understood your question. But can you say what his question is? Simple language, real simple.
What I understood is there any tools to introspect myself whether I'm in the bhakti or not? In the bhakti.
Is there a reason to introspect? Is there a tool to introspect? That's your question?
Yeah.
I'll answer very simply. Sadhu Sangha. You know the sequence, the 9 stages of bhakti? And how does the first of the 9 stages begin? Adau Shraddha, correct?
Yes.
So what's that adau? There's some intrinsic or preliminary faith that says X. There's a high reality, put it in simple language. There's a high reality, and I know that I belong in that high reality realm. So inquisitive, Brahma Jigyasa in the Vedanta Sutra language. I want to know. Adau Shraddha. Then Sadhu Sangha. So in Sadhu Sangha, what do you do when you're in Sadhu Sangha? You do with sadhus what sadhus do when you're in Sadhu Sangha. That's what you do. Bhajana Kriya. That's the third step. So the process to enhance, to enrich my introspection, which is what your question is, yes?
Yes. Yes.
So it's through that process of reawakening. So it's Sadhu Sangha. Thus, Bhajana Kriya. And thus, the 2 things, removal of coverings and awakening of what's forgotten. Like the sprouting of a seed or germination of a seed. So the seed is life, dormant. It can sit in a bag of seeds for hundreds of years and just stays dormant until it's sprouted. So Sadhu Sangha is that which sprouts that seed. And then there's further sprouting of the seed, Bhajana Kriya. So it's that process of introspection. That's a mode of goodness trait. Introspection is a mode of goodness trait. Honest introspection. And so elevation closer to the mode of goodness, what to speak of Shuddha Sattva, is awakened naturally by Bhajana Kriya through in the association of sadhus. Then comes, understanding scripture and teachings and teachers and relationships and empowerment and the sprouting of the seed. And it's intrinsic to awakening, inquisitiveness, introspection. You associate with sadhus, and that's going to happen naturally. Okay?
Makes sense, Maharaj.
Okay. I think we're going to end. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This is a weekday. You're all busy people. I said it before. I'm impressed that you're in the midst of all your busyness. Here you are. Congratulations. And this principle of sadhu sangha will help propel you forward. So somehow or another, continue.